And we're live.
I love the llama.
Well, I just kept it in. I did it once for a joke, and then everybody's like, "Oh, there's llama there." So,
yeah.
I feel
I'm
bad
sure there are
because
gags there about let's llama about or something. There's got to be somebody help me out with
Don't
a
be
good
alarmed. Don't be alarmed. We're live now.
Oh, yes, there we go. There we go.
Yeah, I feel bad because I cut you off on the intro thing by playing the title just to use that. So, let me ask a general question. I'll ask So a lot, and I'm on my own, so I haven't got Christelle as a crutch in terms of thinking of questions to ask you. But you are known as a presentation guru, trainer, person, an expert on training. You've been doing presentation. You were a former research person and did lots of work on communication, all the rest of it. Who is Simon Raybould, and how did you get so good at presentations?
I used to be a research scientist, and I kept getting asked the same dumb questions by politicians over and over and over and over. And I realized that either scientists were bad at explaining stuff or politicians were really dumb.
Yeah.
Third option is obviously true, that both of those things, both of the above are true. I can't do anything about politicians being dumb. But what I did then was shift the substantive topic of my research from a whole bunch of stuff into how to communicate better and how to make better presentations, how to explain stuff better. And then started doing that for a living, which is more fun than any job has a right to be. It's glorious.
Okay, so why is it so fun then? Like, what is it about presentation that makes you just have fun?
Yeah, it's not that, honestly, it's not the presentation, it's the people. Because I spend so much of my time learning about what other people do. And quite often I'm in the presence of genuine genius. And they go, look, I've got this idea for so-and-so. My jaw drops open. And I go, that stone me. That's what? And they go, yeah, but I can't explain it, and therefore I can't get funding for it. And the oh my godness of what I do is that we then turn that into something that they can take to some kind of marketing show, for example, and come away with a couple of 100,000 fit starter dosh, which gets them going, and then they can. So it's not actually the presentations; it is the way that what I do changes people's presentations so that they change the world. Can they have a egocentric klaxon? Because that sounded just unbelievably wacky.
Oh, don't worry. Well, I think let me bring up the llama thing.
There we go. Yes.
That
Mocking llama.
People. I've also put. I did two different versions. I had this Supremo. I'll put the Supremo one up. Maybe if you go a bit ego-y, you can be Presentation Supremo.
It's simple things like I've spent some time, for example, recently at University College London, talking to some of their postgrads and their undergrads and stuff who are starting up companies, and these companies are spinning out of the research of the university, and some of them are just jaw-dropping. So, for example, there is a bit of wearable tech that somebody's trying to launch, which does a whole bunch of measurements of the human condition, which we currently need an intensive care bed to do.
Yeah.
Now imagine if I could replace my iWatch here with a piece of tech that did that. The number of lives lost in intensive care and high dependency units in hospital, and it said hotels then, I've no idea why hotels, in hospitals, that's a game changer. That is a world changer. That is going to make lots of people who would otherwise die in hospital not die in hospital, but they had a really hard time explaining it. Consequently couldn't get funding. Well, now they've got shed loads of funding. I'm not saying money coming out of their ears, but now they have funding to get themselves going. I can't get them further than that. If they botch it, that's up to, that's on them. But at least I've got them started. I've done what I can. So, I can sit on the train on the way back from London, sipping a glass of wine, going, do you know what? That was a worthwhile day. That was something to smile about.
So
it sounds like you need to bring every sentence. I'm going to just bring up the damned llama and deal with my ego.
Llama, I need a different llama graphic, really. But let's get. I always like let's fly out a million miles into the most distant thing and say, well, how much difference do you reckon the content of what somebody says matters as opposed to the presentation of that content. What kind of balance is there, and how does it vary? I mean, if the content is really, really wonderful, even if you're a terrible presenter, can that still work? And vice versa, if you've got terrible content but your presentation skills are fantastic, how does that balance work in your mind?
I would like to think that I wouldn't work with anybody who's got terrible content, because I do want to be ethical about it. So what I'm doing, the speciality I work with, is those people who are great content but terrible presenters. So my response here is biased.
Yeah.
But I have seen plenty of people who've got god-awful content but sound astonishing on stage. Brackets, almost every motivational speaker you've ever seen coming out of America, close brackets, where they give you stuff and the audience is going, whoa, I'm so glad I spent my $5,000, Tony. Thank you very much indeed. Have my babies. And then 2 weeks later, because there's no content, it's all rah, rah, rah circuses. These people are left going, oh, my life hasn't changed. That must be because I'm a failure. And actually the speaker then has made things worse for this person, not better.
Yeah.
But they can do that because their presentation skills are so freaking good. And they've got the hype and the machine and all that kind of jazz. And I will put money on the fact that almost everybody watching this, assuming there is anybody watching this, will have seen some kind of advert and been tempted by it.
Yeah.
And got burnt because whoever it was selling snake oil, but they sold it so well, their presentation skills. But the bit that people always forget about between content and delivery, there is the unsung hero of your presentation, which is your structure and design. Yeah. And that's the bit that people always forget about. They always screw up. They come to me and go, please, can you make me a better presenter? And I go, why? And they go, because I look like a dirk on stage. And that's probably true. But one of the reasons they look like a dirk on stage, dirk is a word I've just made up, by the way. Yeah. I was going to say something really rude and then pivoted quickly to an invented word.
You've now offended everybody called Dirk. Yeah.
Yeah. Other than Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, I don't think I've come across a Dirk anywhere. So they look like a dirk on stage, but the reason they do that is because the audience doesn't understand what they're talking about, and actually they don't understand it either because their presentation is so badly freaking structured. Yeah. And it is the structure that is the thing that is missing. So there are two friends of mine, guys called Rob and Kennedy, who do an awful lot of really good stuff about. Do you know these guys?
I know Rob and Kennedy. I should probably invite them on the show at some point. But,
right. Well, not this month because Kennedy has even turned down free beer from me this month because they are too busy to go to the pub. Yeah. So you're not going to get it this month. Wait till after Atomicon or something.
Yeah.
They had this great line. I think it was Kennedy did it on a podcast once where he said, imagine you've just run and got on a train and you are so tight late for the train, you haven't even had a chance to look up the little thing that tells you what, it's on the right platform, so you pray it's the right train.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's not until the guard says, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 6:45 to London, that you go, okay, I'm on the right train. The structure of a presentation is like that. Until the audience know where they are in the presentation, they can't take on the content because they're too busy going, where are we? What's the structure? What am I supposed to be learning? Where does this fit into that? How do... Yeah. So it's all about that middle ground between structure and design is the bit that's arguably more important than content, or I'm talking rubbish. It's not more important than content or delivery, but it's the bit that everybody forgets about. It's more important that they work on it.
Yeah. So what are some examples of basic structure? Let's say somebody has to give a presentation somewhere and they're worried about it and they want a simple structure to start with, nothing too complicated, but like... No. What kind of structures can people use for presentations if they're new to it?
With the proviso that structure is always determined by what it is you're trying to determine, what you're trying to do. Okay. Let's pretend I haven't said that, and let's pretend that
you take one off the shelf. Yeah.
Let's pretend that my answer is going to make sense.
Yeah.
There are two things you need at the front of your presentation: a personal credibility statement and a content credibility statement. The personal credibility statement is important because that's the thing that means that people are going to go, oh, Oh, so this person's worth listening to. All right.
Yeah.
And it's not that people won't listen to an idiot
Yeah.
or a clown. It is that they can't listen to an idiot or a clown because they've decided that that person's. So it's silly. I'm going to offend everybody in half the population of the United States at this point. But suppose Donald Trump turns up to make a presentation. If he makes a present, I'm just going to assume that anything he says is not worth listening to because he's Donald Trump. Okay. So there's this idea at the beginning of getting a personal credibility statement, something that means the audience goes, oh, right.
Yeah.
They know their business. And I want it to replace the introduction. And by introduction, you know that thing where everybody goes, hello, before I get to the reason that you're actually here, I'd like to tell you a little bit about me. I was born in Sheffield in 1962 from a very early... Oh, for God's sake. Nobody cares. They're there for the content.
Yeah.
Replace that with 2 or 3 sentences that make the audience go, oh, hell. And it could be something as short as, hi, my name is so-and-so. I'm captain of the national ladies volleyball team. Currently, we're ranked 3rd in the world. And assuming it's a sports presentation, you're going to go, oh, 3rd in the world. Right, okay, it's not as cool as 1st or 2nd, but oh my God, 3rd in the world. So, and it wants to be objective if you can make it as well. So don't just go, I'm captain of a very good volleyball team. You go, I'm captain of a volleyball team currently ranked.
Yeah.
Don't say, I'm probably the best presentations trainer in the world. Say, I have just been voted the best presentations trainer. As long as it's true, of course, you can't.
Yeah.
And voting by your children does not count. I need to get that one. Not that my children would vote for me as best presentations trainer. I'm going to swear. That's can I just?
Well, as long as it's not like just a whole. I don't want half an hour.
No. Okay, right. So one very quick story then about my kids and their ability to bring me down to size as a presentations trainer. Did a gig once, and there were 6 people in an auditorium for 500 because no marketing had happened. Yeah. So I was having an informal conversation with the 6 people there before it started, and my phone rang. It was my daughter. My younger daughter. She was working for a charity at the time, so she was on stage as an advocate 6 or 7 times a week. So jokingly, I picked up the phone and said, hi, babe, I'm about to go on stage. Do you have any advice on how to be a cracking good presenter? And I put the phone to the microphone.
Yeah.
You can see where this is going to go wrong, can't you?
Yeah.
Well, Dad, you need to be young, female, and pretty. So basically, you're fucked. My kids, bring me down to size pretty brutally. So once you've got this credibility statement where people go, all right, this person's worth listening to, you follow it immediately by a content credibility statement, which is why the hell they should care about the content.
Yeah.
Obviously, by the end of this presentation, you will be able to. And you say it as blatantly as that. The mistake that most people design in their presentations is that they go through the presentation sequentially. They go problem, data, analysis, solution.
Yeah.
Well, what's the only bit of that the audience cares about?
Yeah, the solution. Yeah.
Let's put that beginning. Because people can't listen, can't remember, can't learn anything unless they know why the hell they are learning it. So having the big denouement, the big answer right at the end, that works for Hollywood movies, but it's not the best option for presentations. So you start off with a personal credibility statement, and then you go for a content credibility statement, and then you go into content. And the content wants to be high level. You don't want to go into detail because nobody cares. Here's the big thing. Nobody cares how something works unless and until they have already bought into the idea that it works.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me give you an example. Tim, I know this is not your shtick, but have you ever used a spreadsheet? You must have used a spreadsheet at some time.
Oh, yeah. I was in IT for 18 years.
Yeah. So your spreadsheet is basically just to priority, to keep tabs of all your income from your multiple income streams, right?
Yeah. Unfortunately, well, yeah.
Is it a short spreadsheet?
Yeah. Well, no, it's lots of columns, lots of entries. They're just low numbers.
Okay, right. Yeah. Have you ever sorted those numbers in a spreadsheet? Yeah, of course you have. Right. So you've used a spreadsheet. You've sorted a column of data. Do you know how the actual algorithm that does the sorting works?
I used to many years ago.
Yeah. All we know is it's a bubble sort.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Which is why Excel is so damn slow, clumsy, and inefficient, and all of that kind of. We don't know the actual way it works, and honestly, how many of us care?
Yeah.
What we care about is random data in, sorted data out. It could be pixies and fairies in the middle for all we care. Nobody cares about how it works. We just care that it works.
Yeah.
So your presentation is going to be all about the fact that it works. And if people want to know how it works, they can come and see you afterwards, and you can give them a document called boring.pdf that explains. Yeah. Obviously, you may want to change the name from boring.pdf to give me the
very boring.
Not quite as boring as it would have been if I put it in the presentation slides.pdf. And they can grab that from afterwards, because the detail is best learned on paper. That kind of hard data is best learned on paper. And then you wrap up the presentation at the end with a 3-minute summary, which everybody does, and then 3 questions, and then a 3-sentence summary that says, if you've understood this, do this, and be unbelievably blatant about it. You know, if you have liked that, click here, follow this QR code, do this, see me, but something really interesting. And just to rewind a bit, something I said there was 3 questions.
Yeah.
You can answer as many questions as you like, but tell your audience you're only going to answer 3 questions. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for paying attention. I've only got time to answer 3 questions. First come, first serve. You, and you. Okay. Because if you say to anybody, right, we're going to be here for as many questions as you've got for as long, 2 things happen. The first is the audience thinks they're in charge, because you're now not an unavailable commodity. Yeah. You know, you're free, and nobody regards free as worthwhile. And the other reason is the energy just runs out of the room. You just keep answering questions until there are no more questions left, and the chairperson says, "No more questions? No. Shall we go for lunch then?"
Yeah.
Well, that's no way, you know. But if you go, I've only got time for 3, boom, 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 and you can relent. You can go, oh, do you know what? I've answered those questions a little bit more quickly than I thought I would. According to my watch, I've got time for 1 more.
Yeah.
But you're always doing your audience a favor by having 1 more question rather than an infinite number of questions.
Yeah.
I've seen, it's the bog standard Cialdini scarcity thing.
Yeah. Well, I've seen the whole questions thing. The number of, certainly marketing conferences, there's a terrible, like, people who ask a question which is just promoting whatever they're trying to sell. With like a spin on the end of it.
Do you have a question? Well, yes, I do. But actually, it's not so much a question as a statement. Yeah. And at that point, the chair would go, well, feel free to go to the bar and make it where there's nobody's time you're wasting, please.
Yeah. I go, hey, so talking about questions.
Obviously, it's going to be hard, isn't it? Anybody who
I'm just going to ask you another question. There's no segue there at all. This is where I need a co-host so I can pick more. But
you need a grown up to keep you in charge, Tim.
Yeah, well, I need a llama, basically. That's what I need. But let's say somebody's really nervous, like they got fantastic content and they understand and they know their, like, why they know the structure, but they're just really nervous and they get the shakes and everything and they feel awful. And how do you help them with that kind of thing? What sort of things do you say to somebody who just is like massively nervous when they speak?
Let's start right back at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Nerves are a good thing.
Yeah.
There's only 2 reasons for not being nervous. One is you're a sociopath and the other is you don't care.
Yeah.
So nerves are an indication that something is important to you, therefore it's a good thing. If you're not nervous, you have to ask yourself why the hell you're making the presentation in the first place.
Yeah.
Second observation, and this is the bit that everybody always hates, rehearsal helps with nerves.
Yeah.
Because if your mind goes blank and you're having to think, you're in trouble. But if your mind goes blank and your body knows what the hell to do on autopilot, you've got 5 seconds in which your brain can catch up. So rehearsal and practice are really handy. It's worth pointing out that rehearsal and practice are not the same thing, but they're a good way of getting yourself going. And there are a whole bunch of techniques that you can teach people after that, depending upon what it is that they say they are most nervous about. So, for example, I want to differentiate between different types of nerve with different origins. And people kind of go, oh, I've got a technique for dealing with my nerves, but it doesn't work. Well, of course it doesn't work. It's because it's performance nerves, and actually what you're suffering from is logistics nerves. So let's tackle it. So depending upon what the source of the nerves is, there are different techniques. For example, if it's logistics nerves, and that logistics nerves is things like, are my slides going to work? Have I got enough handouts? Is my version of PowerPoint the same as the venue's version of PowerPoint? All that kind of jazz. Am I going to get there in time? The simplest thing in the world at that point to solve those things is just a freaking checklist.
Yeah.
So you write down everything that could go wrong, and you write it down a fortnight before the gig, and then as the gig gets closer, you go tick, 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 tick. Simon, have you checked the microphone batteries? Tick. Simon, have you checked where the squeaky bit of the stage is? Tick. Simon, so that by the time I get on stage, a third of my nerves, the bit of my nerves that are to do with nerve technology and delivery and logistics, all of that is completely taken care of. And now I've got my brain free to concentrate on the actual performance bit, which makes things so much easier. If you're talking about performance nerves, there are breathing exercises that you can use, for example, making sure that you breathe from the diaphragm rather than your intercostal muscles. There are technological solutions such as using presenter view rather than trying to memorize the damned thing. There are things like using a prompt bullet point sequence rather than a script. There are techniques such as peripheral vision, which is where you become aware of the stuff that's coming out of the corner of your eye. There's a technique, which is my personal favorite, called Be More Batman. Hang on, sorry, rewind. I've got to do the voice. Are you ready?
Okay.
Be more Batman. Move over, Tim Burton.
Yeah.
The logic behind that one, of course, for example, is you create a persona, you create an alter ego that is competent and knows what. I do it all the time. The real Simon, I can't remember the last time the real Simon has been on stage. Yeah. Stage Simon walks out looking for all the world like he knows exactly what he's doing, because he's left scared Simon on the side of the stage, because there's an alter ego that I have created called Stage Simon who does the gig, and it works in so many ways. Yeah. The first one, of course, is that it takes the pressure off, because by definition, you can't solve your own problems. You know, if you could solve your own problem, you'd have solved it by now, and it wouldn't be a freaking problem any longer. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you create an alter ego, a third party, and you go, I don't know what to do. But if it wasn't my problem, it is so, I don't know what to do. Who would know what to do? Batman would know what to do. What would Batman do? Yeah. Well, just do what Batman would do, And the other reason it works so very well is that if I go on stage and people hate it, it's personal. I get hurt. Yeah. Whereas if Batman goes on stage and people hate it, sure, it hurts.
But it's Batman's problem.
But it's his problem, not mine. Yeah. There are dozens and dozens and dozens of techniques like that. And the ones that I teach people are the ones that, as far as I can tell, having talked to them, are the ones that most suit their personalities. So there's no one size fits all, because that Batman technique doesn't work for somebody who is very, very, very literal. Mm. They would go, but I can't do so-and-so because such and such. Yeah. Honestly, if it works for Beyonce, it'll work for you, mate. Yeah. But their head doesn't allow them. Beyonce was sick on the side of the stage before she used to go on stage.
Oh, does she? Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, that's the whole thing. Half the people you think are worried about some particular thing don't notice.
Well, yeah, absolutely. She would throw up with stage fright. Yeah. So which is why she created Sasha Fierce, because Sasha Fierce could go on stage and do. Honestly, if this technique is good enough for Beyonce, it's probably good enough for you, Sunshine. But some people just can't get past the very. So that's a technique that I wouldn't teach people if they are. And I'm going to be really, really tongue-in-cheek here, so don't take this literally. But if they are accountants, the chances are that's not a technique for them. Yeah. Because they've got this step by step by step process thing going on. They want a technological tool, in which case I would talk about peripheral vision and presenter view to those people.
So what is presenter view? Oh my God,
presenter view, it's the easiest thing in the world, man. It's a setup where you see stuff on your laptop which is different to what the audience sees on the screen.
Yeah.
So the way you can configure it how you like, but the way I've got mine configured is so that the audience sees a slide behind me, but what I see is the same slide as the audience sees behind me, but I also see the next slide. I see some notes. I see a countdown timer, and and honestly, trust me, there is nothing quite so reassuring as knowing what your next slide is going to be.
I know, yeah.
Yeah, because you don't have to remember it. You can just glance down. And it also makes you look unbelievably cool, because what most presenters do is change slide and then use the slide as a prompt to talk.
Yeah.
So there's a 2-second silence. But you can say, and on the next slide, we can see that. And that slide comes up. And obviously, you don't need to literally say on the next slide, but you can start talking about it while it's doing the crossfade. You look so unbelievably professional.
Well, it's like what? Oh, I'm going to get this wrong. But there's in video. There's what's called J cuts and L cuts. It's where the audio starts before
exactly that.
And you're doing that with a slide.
Exactly that.
That's
now,
probably why it looks cool.
I can never remember which way around an L cut and a J cut are.
No, I think it's the it's the way the view. So it'll be the L cut, I think. Be the one with.
So the audio starts before the video, basically. So you start talking about the next slide as it is coming up. How it just looks awesome, and it's no skin off your nose because you can actually see the slide in front of you. You know what is coming up, and it's particularly helpful if you've got complicated or technical slides where you might have got an animation that comes on in 6. Suppose you've got a really complicated. Up here is a diagram that explains something really complicated, and you have arrows coming in one at a time all over the place. It's really handy to see the next arrow that comes. You get the idea.
Yeah. So there's so much I could ask you, but we've kind of got we're running out of time in the best tradition of these things.
It's half an hour, man. I've got all day. It's fine. Until this mug is empty, I'm all yours. And then you've got about 3 minutes before I go big green and start going, Simon Smash.
Simon Smash. This is a totally left field question, but I'm going to ask anyway.
Yeah.
Well, as a presenter trainer and as a presenter, what about a venue? Let's say you're asked to speak at a venue somewhere. What is the good speaking venue and what would be a bad speaking venue? And what things come to your mind when you get asked to speak somewhere? And what should people like? Where's a bad place to speak, or where's a good place to speak? And what are the things that people need to think about as regard to actual speaking venues?
The key thing is how good their tech setup is, obviously, and where their laptop is going to go. Because if their laptop has to go at the back of the venue because that's where you plug it in, then you've got a bit of a technical nightmare. The other things you need to think about are how good the projector or the screen is. Because if you're going to show a video, for example, you need a really powerful projector to cut through daylight and all of that kind of jazz. But to address the question I think you're asking, you need a big enough stage to be able to work in what we call first and second position. Let me explain for a second. First position is where the audience can see me and my slides at the same time. And that's really good for getting a subconscious emotional connection between the two. So if I'm standing up at a business conference and I'm giving people really good news, then the really good news is on the screen and I stand in front of it. Look how much profit we've made this year. On the other hand, if I'm giving bad news, I do not want to be associated with that. Right. So I want to move into something called second position, which is where the audience can see me or the screen, but they can't see both at the same time. So instead of standing in the screen and going, look at the good news, look at how well I've done, you stand somewhere over there and you turn and you go, look at the bad news. Look how awful the world is over there. But you psychologically, instead of saying this is my research, you say this is the research. So it feels objective, and the audience doesn't associate you with the two. And so long as you've got reasonable tech and enough space somehow to get into first and second position, those are your key things. And second position could be done just by walking off the edge of the stage, or sitting in the audience, or sitting on the front of the stage and twiddling your legs. Or as long as you've got some way of distancing yourself from, this is of course assuming you're using slides, but most technical and business presentations statistically tend to. As long as you've got some way of getting away from the data on the slides, then you're halfway there. And the other thing you need to check out, of course, and this goes without saying, I can't believe I have to say this, check where the squeaky bit of the floor is.
Well,
do not ask me how I know. Because the number of times my favorite place to stand on a stage has been the only squeaky floorboard in the entire building. Just find out where that is, and just do a quick idiot check. If I stand here, am I casting a shadow? Little simple things like that. If you've got time, put a bit of electrician's tape on the floor so you know where not to stand or where to stand. Make it bright green so you can see it out of the corner of your eye. The audience won't see it because it's on the floor. But this is getting way. This is when we're talking about big stage gigs. But if you're just talking about your bog standard business presentation, so long as you've got decent tech and first and second position, everything else is a luxury.
Okay, so let's quickly talk about slides then, because I've seen presentations with fantastic slides and I've seen presentations with terrible slides. But I want to know what your opinion of what makes a good set of slides and what makes a bad set of slides.
I don't do opinion. That's my USP. I don't do opinion.
You only do opinion.
I do what the research says. Right. So there are exceptions to every rule. So hold that in your head. In the same way as men are taller than women, but there are exceptions to that rule. There are tall women and short men. So in the same way as there are exceptions to every rule, the general consensus is that you don't want to have much by way of text on slides. For a number of reasons. The one that always freaks people out is this kind of thing. If you put the text on the slide and you say it, surely people have got twice as much chance of understanding it because they're getting it through two different mediums, right? Turns out that that's not how it works inside your head, because you're giving people words to read and they're listening to words being spoken. And the key thing there is that they're both words and they are therefore both processed in the same part of the brain. And now you are actually double loading that part of the brain. You can see where this is. So you're actually increasing what's called their cognitive load and making it much less likely that they will understand what the hell you're talking about. So what you're looking for on your slides is to keep them light for a reason. And the slides are there to support rather than replace. The exception to that rule is if you've got something incredibly technically complicated, in which case it goes on a slide. And the magic there is that you never show the finished solution. You show things one step at a time. So if I'm showing the water flow for a Olympic swimming pool, to pick a client not at all at random, you don't show all the water flows in the building. You do a 3D CAD fading in the water flows to the swimming pool and the diving pool. And then you fade those to grey and superimpose the water flows through the toilet system. And then you fade those to grey. And on top of those, you put the water flows to the sinks. And you get the idea. So the idea is you build it one step at a time so that by the time you've put on layer 2, people have assimilated layer 1 rather than... The jargon we use all the time is people can't drink from a power hose. You have to slow down the information flow because as a presenter, you know so much more than your audience and you can throw information at them so much more quickly than they can assimilate it that they sit there at the end going, man, Simon's a genius. He knows so much. And then they think to themselves, but I haven't learnt any of it. And all that does is make me look good, but makes them feel stupid. And do you know what? There are enough people in the world trying to make themselves look good and other people feel stupid without me doing it as well.
Yeah, I know. I suppose there is that as an issue. Well, I'm going to go a little bit long, but I thought I'd ask you this question. I don't know if you've watched enough of this show to know the significance of the llamas, but Christelle, who's usually my co-host, is based in San Diego. I have a long-running joke about how she's going to start a llama farm. Now, voice in the background, but if you, I've got echo now. How did I get echo? Anyway, if let's say Christelle was starting a llama farm and she wanted to use presentations to get the word out, what kind of advice would you give her? Just in a general, I mean, how is presentation useful to a business or anybody starting a new venture? We're really zooming out here.
Huh? What does she want? I'm assuming she wants money to fund the llama farm.
Yeah. Well, money or sales or people to come, like, how do people use presentations in business?
Right. So
the general question.
The way most people use it is dumb. Yeah. And they start with what they know and they walk through to something. Yeah, they talk about their llama farm.
Yeah.
What audiences need is what's in it for me. So I want people to think about reverse engineering what their presentation should look like. They go, how would I measure the success of this presentation?
Yeah.
This presentation will be a success if 85% of the people change their mind about something, or if 32 people come to me and say, that sounds awesome, I want to invest in your llama farm. Yeah. Or most of the population in your audience have downloaded a PDF called boring.pdf or whatever. Okay. Yeah. So you set up your success criteria, and you literally reverse engineer your presentation to that. Everything is designed to make that happen. It's a bit like driving a car. You don't just sit in the car and start driving, because then you get to somewhere random. What you do is you go, I want to drive there.
Yeah.
What roads do I take to get to that point there? Well, I don't take that road. I take that one.
Yeah.
So if you want is funding, what you do is make a presentation about how much funding you need and how safe it is for the investor, because they don't care about your llamas. They just care about their money coming back.
Yeah.
So your presentation at that point is a financial presentation, brackets, about the llama farm, close brackets, rather than a presentation about the llama farm.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And if you want visitors, what you do is the presentation now becomes about how much fun this person can have, brackets, at your llama farm, close brackets, rather than a presentation about your llama farm.
Yeah.
And that's really soul destroying for somebody whose primary interest in the world is a llama farm.
Yeah.
Because they never get to make a presentation that is just about their damned llama farm.
Yeah, well, unless they want to start their own LlamaCon conference or something.
Yeah, if LlamaCon. Oh, hey, I see a business opportunity here. LlamaCon.
Yeah, well, exactly nobody are going to be searching for that. So,
are we just going to go llamas, or are we going to allow people in if they have alpacas?
Well, we have established, actually, because we did interview somebody who, as well as being a online teacher person, he was actually an alpaca farm. They're supposed to be miles better than llamas. Llamas are supposed to be horrible animals down with farm.
Yeah, llamas are vicious bastards. You can't trust a llama.
No, llamas.
They vote Republican and everything. Yeah, alpacas are the way to go.
Anyway, let's bring this interview to a close. How can people, say somebody's been watching this and they're like, oh, I like this Simon guy. I like what he says, and I want to work with him to help me improve my presentation skills.
Option one,
sell my
see
llama
your
farm.
therapist about your bad personal judgment.
Yeah.
Option two, go to presentationgenius.info.
Yeah.
Or send me an email, Simon at, you can probably work out the rest, can't you? Simon at presentationgenius. Presentationgenius.com was gone, by the way. So presentationgenius.info. And I know it's the world's most egocentric it wasn't my choice. It was the publishers wanted a book called Presentation Genius, and my suggestion of calling it How to Make Your Presentations a Little Bit Less Shit. They didn't think that the Dwight Smith was going to stock this.
Oh, well, if that's ever the argument for self-publishing, then I would have thought.
Well, the thing is, yes, it was Presentation Genius. The book was a bestseller, and that is every bit as cool as you think it is. You walk through an airport and you see your book on the. Yeah, it is very cool. But the reason it was so successful because the publishers knew exactly how to design a book for this person to buy for that. You get the idea. And they said this many chapters, so many words. The title is going to be Presentation Genius. And no, you have no input in any of those things, Simon, because this is a business and those things will make money. Whereas your idea of how to make your presentations a little bit less shit than they otherwise would be is not going to make money.
No. Oh, well.
They were right.
Yeah. So people can buy your book as well. Is it still in print?
Yeah, it's floating around on Amazon. There are second-hand copies floating around on Amazon. I think it's out of print now. In fact, I know it's out of print now because I tried to get some myself to give to clients. But you can still get a copy on Amazon. Ironically, I've only got 2 copies myself. Both of them are so battered that I couldn't give them away if I tried.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Anyway, thanks so much for being the guest today, and I'm hopefully not going to screw up playing the outro. I'm not sure if anybody watched live, but people can watch it on YouTube. And I know that people watch the replays.
Basically, so long as the llamas are happy, that's all I care about.
Yeah, the llamas are happy. There's 0 of them. So thanks so much for being the guest. And
I have really enjoyed it. Thank you for the opportunity. See ya.
Thanks for being watching the replays. Hey. Right.
This is what God requires.